Good morning. Welcome to my live stream. I'm Elizabeth of Old School and Eclectic Crafts here on YouTube, and I am glad that you are here on my live stream today. This puppy dog in front of me, his name's Winston. He is 3 years old, and he is desperate for attention this morning, so he's probably going to take up a little bit at the beginning of this stream. Hi, buddy. Today, as you can see, we have a little bit different setup. I'm going to be doing some ironing that I've been avoiding. And we're going to talk about what it's like being an Etsy shop owner and maybe do some Q&A for anyone who's here in the live part of the live stream rather than the replay. And probably chat about what I'm doing and what my plans are for the future. So I'm glad you guys are here. I mentioned that this is a different setup than normal because I don't know if I have a normal setup just yet, but I'm in my bedroom, stay on my bed because this is more comfortable. The room so my crafting space got, I don't want to say destroyed, but became inaccessible when our house flooded 2 weeks ago in the record-breaking St. Louis flood or rainfall. We got like 10 or 11 inches. It was a lot. And so I can't do any of my sewing downstairs. And even before that, my husband and I had discussed changing one of the rooms, one of the spare rooms upstairs in our house, into a craft room for me. And so that's what we're in the middle of doing. But we have to get that room cleaned out first. It was our library, which means that I have hundreds of books that I'm working on boxing up. Hi, buddy. Come here. I have hundreds of books that I'm working on boxing up, and that takes a lot of time, especially since I'm doing a photo inventory of every box. I have some organization app or something where you can do a photo inventory. So that's making it take longer than it would otherwise. Plus, we're working on getting rid of some of our furniture so we can move stuff around and better use the space that we have, plus using the stuff that we have. We're getting rid of a chest of drawers, a couple twin beds, a table, our couch. You gonna let me work yet? No? Hi, buddy. He's like, this is the perfect spot for me. I'm gonna lay right here. Hi, I'm gonna need you to move here in a minute. Can you move? Come on. Thank you. All right. There's my ironing board. So we're working on evolving our house. And the fact that the house flooded has really just made everything more difficult. All right. So for safety reasons, I hadn't turned my iron on. So now it needs to heat up. So let's hear, what are we going to discuss? What is like being an Etsy shop owner? Oh, real quick, the stuff that I'm ironing here, this is all fabric from old projects that were in a box of fabric scraps. But of course, then our basement flooded. And because the box that these were in was cardboard and it was sitting on the floor, everything got soaked. Everything got wet. Actually, this stuff didn't get soaked. It just got damp. And even in this, it wasn't okay. It was, I had to get everything washed and clean. Luckily, the water that was coming into our basement was generally clean water. It wasn't any sort of sewage or backup or anything like that. It was relatively clean, just rainwater that came in. I wasn't touching it. I was feeling the heat. Kind of like how you can tell how warm a pan is just by putting your hand near it. That's what I was doing. So because I've washed these, I now need to iron them so that way I can fold them neatly and they'll be prepped for whenever I need to use them need or want to use them next. I don't know how you guys store your extra fabric, but I tend to try and have everything. If it's going into my storage, it needs to be completely ready to be pulled out and used. Because if it's not, I'm not going to be willing to use it. That's just the way my brain works. So this fabric that I'm ironing right now is some sort of polyester. It's a polyester lining fabric used for like lining skirts and suits and stuff. And I used this in my custom, a custom skirt I made probably about 6 months ago. For my customer, she bought and ordered all of her own fabric and had it sent to me. And then I made her a skirt. I made her a skirt out of the fabric that she sent me. And so this was some of the fabric that she sent me. This is what I used to line her skirt. I don't usually line skirts. This fabric is very obnoxious to work with because it's so slippery. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's very slippery and fiddly. And even as I'm ironing, it's not really ironing. But I can't turn the iron up very high because it's polyester and it'll melt. So and it feels like there's a lot of fabric here, but it's in a form that's not very usable at the moment because it's not very wide because of how I had to cut the pattern pieces out. So it's not like this would be very easily used as a lining fabric for another skirt. Do any of you guys own your own business? My Etsy shop is not any sort of official LLC or registered business or anything. It's just something I do. Something I decided to do one day, and that was the extent of it. Do any of you guys own like your own out of your house business or an actual LLC or something? I would love to hear about it. And only in this stream, don't be doing on all my streams or I'll start blocking you. Only on this stream, if you have a business and you have some sort of link or website, put it in the chat. And we'd love to hear about it. It's generally considered rude to promote yourself on other people's stuff. And so I'm giving you permission on this single stream to do that, to promote whatever your your business is. Go ahead and give a little synopsis of what it is that you do or sell or whatever, and put a link to your website or your shop or whatever into the comments. I'd love to hear about it. So because I had to wash this fabric when it was dirty, it of course frayed really bad. Luckily, when I cut the fabric out, in order to keep it from distorting when I was cutting it, I did do a line of stitching around all my curved edges. So this right here is curved. So there we go. That's curved. And there's actually a line of just straight stitching right here. And that's a technique used to stabilize curves to keep, because when you're on a curve of fabric, that's where the stretch comes from. If you've ever heard of bias tape, the bias is the diagonal of the fabric. So you have the warp and the weft of the weave, and then the bias is the diagonal. So if you were to cut it diagonally, you'd have a strip of cloth that is very elastic, even though it's made from a fabric that in and of itself is not. And so when you're making a piece of fabric that has a curve in it, you have to fight against the bias if you're cutting on a curve. And so doing a my brain stopped working. What's it called? A stabilizing stitch. It's just a straight stitch from my sewing machine. Will help secure it. And so because I did that, it did help to stabilize this fabric while it was being washed. But that doesn't change the fact that it frayed like absolutely crazy. So I'm just getting rid of some of the really floofy bits. These scissors are not very good, but they're pretty. They're pretty scissors, but they're not very good. I don't know if it's because I've used them so much that they're dull now, or because I've dropped them several times so they're no longer aligned. I don't know. So I got these washed right after the flood, this fabric. But I've been avoiding ironing because I don't like ironing. I find it very uncomfortable, even painful at times. So as a result, I've been naturally avoiding it. Because who wouldn't avoid something that causes them pain? I'm going to shift the camera here. That helped. Do you like my phone extend arm? Because I'm clever. That is wet. Why is that wet? Why is that wet? That should not be wet. I'm very confused. The handle of my iron is wet. I mean, it's possible that my spray bottle leaked onto it. My spray bottle's over there. I'm so confused. I do not understand. Oh, my nose itches so bad. Let's see here. See, there's lint. There's a lot of this fabric. You may be curious about my ironing board here. I made this. I don't have an actual like classic standing ironing board. And the really fancy one, like the one that I really want, costs like $300. Plus the one that I actually originally really wanted got discontinued, and so that made me really sad. So I made my own version. I just don't have an actual stand for it. So this is, I made this out of just a piece of like 1/2-inch wood. It was like 18 inches by, or 16 inches by like 3 feet. And I got some heat resistant wool batting and an old white cotton sheet, and covered the wood in the batting and then in the folded sheet. So I have the sheet folded in fourths, and I was able to wrap that around, and now it's there. And these are just quilting tacks. But there's just these tacks. There's only like 6 tacks on the back of this. And so this is my homemade ironing board. It is very large. It is square, and I can move it wherever the heck I want. For example, I'm ironing on my bed right now. I don't think I got this entire piece of fabric, but I am over it. I'm a very lazy crafter, which can be good sometimes, because when you're lazy about something, but you have high expectations, you will find the fastest way to make something in the best way possible. Fastest method for making something in the best way. I hope that made sense. I'm feeling very convoluted at the moment. I am so sorry for all my sniffles. My nose itches so bad. There's something with my allergies that just... Like I said, it's very slippery fabric and fiddly. And so you may notice that if you were to look at my big skirt listing, my like custom boho, cottage core, tiered maxi skirt or something, the name I put on it is very convoluted and long because you have to give the algorithm what will allow people to find your item. But you'll notice on it that skirt is not lined. And this is why I hate working with this fabric. I would probably double the cost just as a stress fee because of how much I don't like working with this fabric. I'm trying to fold this nicely, but it's not necessarily working with me. Does anyone have any questions for me? The chat is open to any questions anyone might have. There's still something in here that's not flat. With this hand, I'm trying to hold stuff from moving while I try and get it to lay flat on the inside. And I might just have to give it up and just say it's good enough, but I don't like it. This is the kind of thing that it can be really helpful to just have a big open space to lay it down and then fold it there. possibly with 2 people, just to make sure the dog gets laid down flat. It is not flat, but I'm going to tap out because that is annoying. I love this dress, but the way they did the neckline, it sits funny. All right, there's that big piece of fabric. Now I have a couple little pieces of this same fabric. If I were able to do mobile live streaming, like using my phone to do my live stream, I would probably be showing you guys a tour of all the progress I've made in changing up my sewing room and changing my library into a sewing room. But because I can't do mobile live streaming until I have 50 subscribers, we're kind of stuck where we're at. All right, I keep saying that we're going to talk about what it's like to be an Etsy shop owner, and I just haven't. To own my own craft-based business is something I have wanted since I was quite young. Like, I started selling stuff in junior high. Of course, I didn't get very far and I didn't sell very much, but I tried. I think that was one of my first false starts, was junior high into high school. I remember I put together an entire order form of like everything that I knew how to make. Most of it was either knit or crocheted items. And I had an entire like paper with all of my yarn samples of all of the yarn colors I had. And I had drawn up this whole order form, but it didn't go very far. And then my next false start was in 2016. If you look at my Etsy shop, it'll show that my shop's technically been open since 2016. And that was one of my false starts, where I wanted to start. And so I opened up my Etsy shop, but then I didn't do anything with it. Like, I put in a couple listings and that was it. I didn't sell anything. I didn't go very far with it. And so it fizzled. Of course, then I got married and stuff went a little bit crazy and my health went south. And so that didn't help. So that was my second false start. And then in January of 2021, January 1st, 2021, the nose itch is real. January 1st of 2021 is when I officially opened for real. That is the current iteration that we are in right now. It's the one that I opened in January of 2021. And I'm still going strong. I have made quite a few sales. So that's all my synthetic stuff. The rest of it I'm going to be ironing is cotton. And so I can turn the heat up. See if I can find an end to this. I know there are ends. Ah. So as far as I'm concerned, I feel like I have made lots of sales. I feel like I've made quite a bit of money, but that is based purely on my own expectations and goals, and not so much on comparison with other shop owners, which could be a good or a bad thing. I personally don't like the idea of constantly comparing my shop to everybody else's, because my only real goal is to do better than I've done previously. Um, and this year, I am already doing better than I was last year. I've already made more sales than I made last year. I've already made more money than I made last year. Um, so I feel really good about the work and the progress that I have made. Now, if I started comparing myself to other shops that are doing similar things, I would either start getting really cocky, or I would get really depressed and discouraged because I'm not doing as well as they are, or I'm doing so much better than they are. Haha. Like, I'm human, and comparison is kind of human nature. And I try really hard not to do that. And so I have no idea how well other shops are doing. Um, every once in a while, my social media will say that I'm not doing as well as other pages or channels or shops that are similar to mine, that I'm just not doing as well as they are according to numbers or whatever. A couple times they've said that I'm doing average or better than other ones, but it doesn't really matter what everyone else is doing. It just matters what I'm doing and how I'm handling things. And for me, I feel like I'm doing really, really well. Especially since with my mental health, I can only do so much. And if I were to try and catch up to others and try and match what they're doing, it would destroy me mentally. I wouldn't be able to do it. And so for me, right now, I feel like I'm doing really good. So if you're curious about this really awkward piece of fabric I'm currently doing, this used to be a king-sized fitted sheet. It's a knit fabric. It's like a t-shirt fabric, sort of. That was a sheet, and it was terrible. This fabric was awful. Actually, the fabric's not awful. It's the way that the pattern was cut out. It was like when they cut it, the fabric wasn't straight, and it was stretched funny in weird places. And so rather than being cut nice and square to get all the lines to match up and everything, they cut it in a very awkward way. And so no matter what you do, it physically could not lay flat. And so to have a fitted sheet that refused to lay flat was completely unacceptable, and I could not deal with it. So I cut it up and used it for something else. I made a giant carrying case for a folding mattress that my husband has. I say my husband has because he came into our marriage with it, but it's now ours, I guess. Now this is so big and so convoluted with its many little fingers of fabric coming off it that I'm going to not fold this right now. I'm going to get it ironed so that the major wrinkles are gone, and then I will later take it to go fold elsewhere. Our basement has, now that I've cleaned up all the flood stuff, the basement is basically has a giant empty spot in the middle. So plenty of space to be able to iron a wonky piece of fabric out. Because I don't like ironing. I know you're supposed to iron your fabric before you cut out your pattern pieces, but I usually cut out my pattern pieces and then I iron it, because then I'm only ironing small pieces instead of giant messes. And that makes it more manageable for me. I am so anal about a lot of my patterns that I do for sewing are generally made out of like squares and rectangles, and so as long as I get that square, even if it's not ironed, but if I'm following like the threads to get it square, it'll still be square when I do iron it. I really like to use the pulled thread method, where you find where you need to cut to be able to get a straight line, and you line it up with one of the warp or the weft threads. This only works on woven fabrics, not on knit fabrics. But you find the warp or the weft thread that lines up with the line that you need to cut, and then you basically pull that thread out. And so then you have just this little tiny gap where that thread had been, and then you cut it, and you'll have a perfectly straight line. And if it isn't actually straight, that is because your fabric's not squared, and you need to pull on it to fix it. But that's my preferred method. It's obviously longer than just hacking away hoping that it's square, but it makes me feel better to know that it is square, because I know that because of the method I used, it's going to be square no matter what. I swear, I feel like this piece of fabric is so big that I feel like it's never ending. When I'm leaning forward, I have a pile of loose threads that I'm adding to. Because I had to wash all this without an opportunity to properly finish edges that originally didn't need to be finished. I do have a lot of frayed pieces. Whenever I iron, I always think about my grandma. remember if I asked her to do this or if she volunteered to do it. But when my husband and I got married, we met living in the Midwest, but all of our extended family, our grandparents, our aunts, and our uncles, they all lived out west. And so we decided that we would do the ceremony out west where all of our relatives were, because we wanted to be able to have our families there. Like, and more than just like our brothers and sisters who were kind of scattered to the wind, but our grandparents and our aunts and uncles and cousins, and we just wanted our family there. And so we decided to do our wedding out west. And so we had to travel across the country. We drove, which actually I rode. Both my husband and I, when we were engaged, the week before the wedding, we both got super sick, like awful sick. So the week leading up to the wedding, we were both bedridden, just so sick. I don't know what we had. I think it was just like a really bad cold. I don't know. But we were both very, very sick. So on the drive out to the wedding, my parents and a couple of my siblings drove out with us because they lived near where my parents were. I was living with my parents at the time before we got married. So we rode up with my parents, and we were both so sick that I know I slept for most of the drive, and the drive was 15 hours, 16 hours. Yeah, I slept for most of it because I was still so sick. By the time that the day of the wedding came, we were both generally better. I know that when it came to being on the honeymoon, we ended up sleeping quite a bit because we were both still so tired and worn out from being sick. But we went to hot springs, and so it was really nice to just sit in a hot bath. But so we had to travel cross country, and I had this huge dress. I had like the classic, it was an A-line skirt that poofed out like a really pretty princess dress. Not like princess dress, but A-line. Big poofy prom dress kind of style. It had like a 3-foot train. It was just so much fabric. So much fabric. And of course, traveling cross country with it meant that it was wrinkly by the time that we got to out west where our families were. And my grandma, okay, for a little bit of information here, the vast majority of our wedding was done by family members, where instead of a gift, we asked them to help us with a particular part of the wedding. So my mother-in-law, instead of a gift, we asked her to make my bouquet, and it turned out gorgeous. So she made our bouquet. My eldest brother, instead of any sort of gift, he did our photos. One of my sister-in-laws, she was in charge of making sure that all the food was put in order. And I had an aunt who kind of just volunteered herself to help. So a lot of the stuff was done by family members. And so that actually helped reduce the cost of our wedding a lot. But I didn't really have anything for my grandparents to do, to help out or to have a role. And so my grandma, like I said, I can't remember if I asked her to do this or if she volunteered. I feel like she volunteered for it. But she ironed my dress for me, the entire thing. Ironed or steamed it, I don't know. I just know that it was really pretty by the time that it arrived at me. And I didn't have like the classic bridesmaids or maid of honor or anything. But I did have a really, I would like to call her my best friend, who she was essentially my maid of honor. She made sure that everything went well. She made sure that if I needed anything that I had it. And she's the one who did my hair. So she did my hair. I did my own makeup. And then my grandma got my dress all ironed. And then it showed up. And so whenever I iron, to make a long story short, whenever I iron, I think of my grandma and how grateful I was that she took care of my wedding dress for me. Because weddings are a lot. There's a lot of things going on. Especially when you're doing it somewhere that's not like local or somewhere that you are super familiar with. I mean, I was vaguely familiar with the area that we were in because, I mean, I'd visited my grandparents many times, but it's just not quite the same. I don't know. I wasn't expecting to talk about my wedding, but well, hope you guys are enjoying the story. My husband and I ended up doing our reception the night before the wedding, which might sound really strange, but it meant that we were able to do a whole family's friends, everybody could show up for the reception the night before. And of course that meant that my husband saw me in my dress and all my getup before, and that meant I had to get dressed twice. But given that I was doing all my makeup and everything on my own, there really wasn't a big deal for us. But so it meant that we could do the reception and we could see all of our friends and family and get all of that out of the way. And then the next morning, we had a family breakfast and gift opening. So all the gifts from the reception, we then opened up with a big family party. And then because we were all there for the breakfast and for the gift opening, and then everybody kind of split up to go get dressed and changed and ready for the ceremony. Those who were actually going to go. It was because of how we did our wedding, it was a very small ceremony based compared to like extraneous friends and family were not able to be at the actual ceremony. It was very much aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, grandparents. That was it. A couple of my cousins did actually come to the ceremony, even though technically they weren't part of the invitation, but I wasn't offended. There was extra chairs, so it was nice to have them there. So if any of those cousins see this, I'm not upset. I wasn't upset. I thought it curious at the time, but I had too many other things going on to even care, and I'm just glad that you were there. But so he's wagging his tail in his sleep, and it's adorable. So where was I going? So it was a small ceremony. And because we went out west for it, we were able to have all of our aunts, uncles, and grandparents there. All of our living grandparents, both mine and my husband's, are not in a condition or weren't even at the time to be able to travel. And so it was really nice being able to have them there. This beast is done. It's all ironed. It's probably already wrinkled again, but hopefully not as bad as it was. So it was really nice having them all there. There's so much. So because we had done the reception and the gifts and everything already, by the time that the ceremony was done, all we had to do was take some photos, which actually I really regret the way we did the photos. Like, part of it I'm really proud of, because beforehand I planned out with my brother, the photographer, what photos I wanted and what order we were going to do them in, so that way we could get the families and all the family photos done quickly. And I'm really proud of that. But we only actually got, because I was so absorbed in the family photos and everything, we only got 3 photos of just my husband and I really regret that. And I am very upset about it. But that was kind of my own fault for not planning that out better. Plus, I can't find any of our wedding photos anymore. I never got any of them printed out. And I don't know where they ended up. I'm pretty sure my brother gave me a USB drive with all the photos, but I don't know where it is. I mean, I have a whole box of wedding stuff that it might be in there. I just haven't gone digging through it to try and find it. But to my knowledge, I don't know where my wedding photos are. But it's really sad because I haven't printed any of them out, which just compounds the fact that I don't have very many photos of my husband and I at the wedding. But don't do like I did. Make sure to get plenty of photos of you and your spouse. If you're not married, you may think it's weird or whatever that brides get so many photos taken, glamour shots and stuff. I wish I had done that. And I didn't. And I really regret it. So don't do like I did. I do have a steamer function on this. It's really nice, but because of the way I'm ironing right now and the way that I'm moving everything around, getting my new sewing room set up, I don't want to put water in this. So, yeah, don't do like I did at my wedding. Make sure that you get lots of photos. And lots of photos of just you and your new spouse. And then don't lose the file that has all your photos. But so because we had already done the reception, we'd already done all of the family things, we'd already opened all the gifts. After the ceremony, my husband and I went back to his aunt and uncle's place where we had the breakfast and where all of our clothes and stuff was. And we were able to get changed. They brought us some pizza for lunch. Our ceremony was at 10 a.m. And then we were able to leave. We just left for our honeymoon. There wasn't any of that weird, awkward time between the ceremony and the reception. And by the time we got to our honeymoon, we weren't exhausted because we'd had a good night's sleep and We weren't leaving for our honeymoon at like 9 p.m. or even later. Like, that I really liked about my wedding, where we did the reception the night before. It just made it so much easier. And it made it so that we could just leave for the honeymoon. It's so much easier ironing small pieces of fabric. If you're married or have been married in the past, what was something that you were really grateful that you did and would highly suggest that other people do? And what was something that you really regret and would warn others not to do? Whether you're watching this in replay or you're on right now, I would love to hear it. Your advice for people getting married, both things that you would highly suggest and things that you would never suggest anybody do. Oh, something else that I really liked that we did, which a bird just hit our window. Not like ran into it, but flew up out of the bushes so fast that its wings hit the window. Distraction. Something else that I really liked, which of course isn't going to be effective unless I can actually find my wedding photos, is instead of having like a regular sign-in book where when people come to the reception, they sign their name in a little book, saying they were there. And that's a classic wedding keepsake for the couple. Instead of doing just like a classic one of those, I actually went and I got a photo album. And then as people came into the reception, my brother had a photo booth area. My brother, being the photographer, he had a photo booth area, and he took pictures of everybody who came in. And then they would sign in the photo album next to a unique photo slot. So that way, if I can find my photos and I can print them out, I can just put the photos next to where they signed in this big photo album. And then we'll have faces with names. Plus we'll have a whole bunch of, we'll like have photos of everybody who was there. We'll have the names of everybody who was there because they all signed. So I'm really proud of that one. But again, I got to find my photos to be able to print them out. I was really hoping to have them done for Christmas this year. So I need to do some searching around as I'm rearranging and setting up this new sewing room. Hopefully I'll be able to pull them out and pull out that wedding box and see if I can't find my wedding photos so I can get them all printed out. Because my mom's been bugging me because she doesn't, of course, I don't have my wedding photos, which means that she doesn't have my wedding photos. And she has like a little photo album or booklet for each of my siblings and their weddings, but not one for ours, obviously. And she would really like one. And I would like her to have one. It's actually really nice for the nieces and nephews when they want to look at photos. They can just look through these little books, and then they get to know the faces of their aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles and their great grandparents and just family. And it's really cool. I think I'm actually running out of time. This hour has gone by really fast. I mean, doing these for an hour is completely arbitrary, but it seems like a good number to me. If this spray bottle had vinegar in it, had a vinegar water mixture in it, and it still had a little bit left in it when I topped it off with water, so this still smells a bit like vinegar. So the original topic that I was going to discuss in this live stream was what it's like being an Etsy shop owner. It's really cool, but it's also frustrating. Etsy isn't, it pretends to be user-friendly, but it isn't necessarily. They like to take a lot of fees. They take between like 7 and 15% of all your income. So when you make a purchase from an Etsy shop, an actually fairly large portion of it goes to Etsy itself. But I really like having my own business. I like fulfilling orders. Basically, any excuse to be able to create things is nice for me because I just like creating. And this gives me an excuse, plus I get paid for it. I love this dress, but the way the collar sits is just so weird. Of course, I'm also wearing it backwards because this side has elastic right here and the other side doesn't, which means that this side actually has space for your chest, whereas the other side is flat. So it ends up being very tight. Other than that, it's literally symmetrical front to back, which is why you can wear it backwards. So I really enjoy owning my own shop. I really enjoy making sales. I get very excited whenever I hear that ka-ching of like the cash register ding, which is what Etsy does every time you make a sale. And it just, the dopamine just goes through the roof. It makes me so happy. And that's actually a really good indicator for when I need to discontinue an item. As many of my longtime subscribers and followers will know, for a long time I was doing these plushy dice. They're very, very popular. I got a lot of revenue off of them. But when I would get that ka-ching of a sale on Etsy and I would see that it was the dice, I would feel dread rather than excitement. And so that's why I discontinued them, because they weren't fun anymore. They didn't bring me joy anymore. So I removed them. I do still have one set that I'm working on. If the house had not flooded, I would have already sent them out and they would be completely done. But as it is, I no longer have access to my sewing machine because everything flooded and I lost access to all my sewing stuff. But had my house not flooded, I would have already gotten that shipped out. But so you'll still see, I'm going to probably do some more posts about my plushie dice just because I am still doing that last set. I'm wanting to get some good filming of me assembling and sewing the dice. And I did try and get some like the day before the flood. But the way I had my camera set up, it was just shaking the whole time. So it's not really very good or usable footage. So let's see here. What were the comments that I wanted in the chat? I wanted to hear what your business is in this live stream only. If you have a link or a website or a business that you run or own, I would love to hear about it. Post the link in the chat. And then I also want to hear your wedding planning do's and don'ts. What's something that you did or wish that you did that you really, really liked? And what was something that you did that you really regret? Go ahead and give people ideas and advice in the chat. I would love to hear them. I really look forward to reading your suggestions and your ideas and your stories. I really look forward to following your links and seeing what you guys sell or create or what services you provide. I would love to see it. Thank you for joining me while I work on this ironing that I've been avoiding because I don't like ironing. Thank you for all your support. It would mean the world to me if you were to share this live stream, share my channel, let people know about my work and my Etsy shop. I really want to get to a point where I can do mobile live streaming, where I can live stream from my phone, but you can't do that until you have 50 subscribers. I currently have 8, which is 3 more than I had last week. So I'm very excited about that. And I got those 3 because one of my subscribers shared my live stream last week. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. That got me more views. It got me more subscribers. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. So I would love to be able to grow, but I can't grow without your help. I can only do so much. I can only reach so many people on my own. But you guys have a wider reach. Have you ever heard of like the 7 degrees of separation or something like that? I have my reach, but you then have further reach. And I would love it if you like my content for you to share it with those who are within your reach. Thank you so much again for your support and for your love. Links for my Etsy shop, my Facebook group, my Facebook page, my Instagram page, and my Amazon wish list for my shop are all in the description. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week. I hope you guys have a great week. Bye.